You're just a gold digger, Amanda sneered, standing in my kitchen with her designer purse clutched to her chest like a shield. Everyone knows you trapped my brother with your innocent act. Now do us all a favor and leave. I continued washing the dishes, letting the warm water run over my hands as I tried to maintain my composure. After 5 years of marriage to James, you'd think his sister would have found a new target for her venom. But no, Amanda had made it her life's mission to prove I married her brother for his family's money. My name is Sofia Martinez, and at 32, I found myself defending my marriage yet again. Not against outside threats, but against the poison that seeped from within the family itself. James was away on a work trip, which meant Amanda felt emboldened to make her weekly visit to remind me how unworthy I was of the Anderson family name. "Are you even listening?" she demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "James is filing for divorce. He knows all about your little scheme now." That made me pause. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands slowly, deliberately. "What scheme would that be, Amanda?" She smiled, the kind of smile that reminded me of a predator about to pounce. "The way you pretended to work at that coffee shop, making yourself look poor and helpless. How you orchestrated meeting James there, knowing he always stopped for his morning coffee. You played him perfectly, didn't you?" I couldn't help but laugh, which only seemed to infuriate her more. "I worked at that coffee shop to put myself through nursing school. Unlike some people, I'm not afraid of honest work." "Please," she scoffed, pulling out her phone. "I have proof now. Someone sent me interesting information about your past. Seems like you've tried this routine before, haven't you? Getting close to wealthy men, trying to sink your claws in." My heart skipped a beat, but not for the reasons Amanda assumed. I knew exactly who would have contacted her, and why. "Let me guess," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Someone named Marcus reached out to you." The slight widening of her eyes told me I was right. "So you admit it. You know him." "Oh, I know Marcus," I replied, walking toward the stairs. "Would you like to see something interesting, Amanda? Since you're so concerned about the family's welfare." She followed me up to the attic, her heels clicking against the wooden steps like angry exclamation points. The late afternoon sun filtered through the dusty window, casting long shadows across the cluttered space. I moved purposefully toward an old trunk in the corner, one I hadn't opened since the day I married James. "What are you doing?" Amanda demanded, watching as I pulled out a key I kept on a chain around my neck. "Showing you the truth," I said simply, unlocking the trunk. "Since you're so interested in my past with Marcus." The hinges creaked as I lifted the lid, revealing stacks of yellowed newspapers, old photographs, and legal documents. On top lay a front-page article from 15 years ago. Its headlines still bold despite the passage of time. "Tech mogul's son arrested in investment scandal." Amanda snatched the paper, her eyes scanning the text rapidly. I knew what she was reading. The story of how Marcus Reynolds, son of a wealthy tech executive, had been caught running an elaborate investment scam targeting young women. The article mentioned his arrest, but more importantly, it mentioned the key witness who had helped bring him down. A 19-year-old barista named Sofia Martinez. This can't be right," Amanda stammered, looking between me and the article. "Marcus said you were his accomplice, that you helped him scam people." I pulled out more documents, police reports, court transcripts, and a letter of commendation from the FBI. I worked undercover with the FBI for 6 months to gather evidence against him. Marcus lost everything: his money, his freedom, his family's reputation. He spent 8 years in prison, and now he's trying to get revenge by poisoning my new life. Amanda sank onto an old chair, the paper trembling in her hands. But you were just a coffee shop worker. How did you?" "I was a criminal justice student working part-time," I corrected her. "When I noticed Marcus's pattern with other young women who came into the shop, I contacted the authorities. They asked for my help building a case against him." I pulled out one final document, a certified letter from the FBI stating that the majority of Marcus's seized assets had been returned to his victims, thanks to my testimony. I could have taken the reward money they offered, could have sold my story to the press. But I didn't, because it was never about the money, Amanda. It was about doing what was right. The silence in the attic was heavy with the weight of shattered assumptions. Amanda stared at the evidence of my past, her carefully constructed narrative about me crumbling before her eyes. Does James know about all this?" she finally asked, her voice small. No, I said quietly, because unlike some people, I don't think the past defines who we are. I married James because I love him, not because of his family's money or status. I've never needed either. I began placing the documents back in the trunk, each one a reminder of a chapter in my life I'd chosen to keep private, not out of shame, but because I'd wanted to build a new life based on who I was now, not who I'd been forced to become at 19. I think you should leave now, Amanda, I said, closing the trunk. And the next time Marcus or anyone else tries to feed you stories about me, remember what you saw today. Remember that appearances can be deceiving, just not in the way you always assumed. She stood up shakily, clutching her designer purse like a lifeline. As she headed toward the attic stairs, she paused. Why didn't you ever tell us? It would have changed everything. I smiled sadly. Would it? Or would you have just found another reason to doubt me? Some people only see what they want to see, Amanda. I learned that lesson a long time ago. As I watched her leave, I knew this wasn't over. The truth about my past was out now, and soon James would know everything. But for the first time in 5 years, I felt strangely peaceful. Sometimes the best defense isn't in hiding who you are, but in finally letting the truth come to light. I pulled out my phone and texted James a simple message. We need to talk when you get home. There's something I should have told you a long time ago. The house felt eerily quiet after Amanda left. I sat in the living room, surrounded by photo albums I'd pulled from the shelves. Pictures of James and me on our honeymoon, holiday gatherings with his family, moments of happiness I'd captured and preserved, hoping they'd somehow prove my worth to the Andersons. My phone buzzed with James' reply. Is everything okay? I can catch an earlier flight. Before I could respond, another message popped up, this one from an unknown number. My heart sank as I read it. Do you really think you could keep your past hidden forever, Sophia? I told you I'd make you pay for what you did to me. Marcus. I blocked the number immediately, but the damage was done. Marcus was clearly determined to destroy the life I'd built. The irony wasn't lost on me. He was still trying to control and manipulate, just like he had 15 years ago. The doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Margaret, my mother-in-law, standing there with Amanda. Of course, Amanda had gone straight to her mother with her discovery. I opened the door, steeling myself for what was coming. Margaret swept past me into the house, her expensive perfume trailing behind her like a warning sign. Amanda told me everything, she announced, turning to face me with the same cold expression I'd seen countless times at family dinners. About your involvement with that criminal, Marcus Reynolds. Did she tell you the whole story? I asked quietly. Or just the version Marcus wants you to believe? She showed me the newspaper articles, Margaret said, her voice sharp. My son married someone who was involved in a criminal investigation. Do you have any idea what this could do to our family's reputation? I walked to the attic stairs. Follow me. Both of you need to see something. This time, I pulled everything out of the trunk, not just the newspaper articles, but the commendation letters, the victim statements, the photos of young women who'd lost their savings to Marcus's scheme. I spread them across the attic floor, creating a timeline of truth that couldn't be denied. I was 19. I began, my voice steady. Working at the coffee shop, studying criminal justice. Marcus would come in, always targeting young women who seemed vulnerable. He charmed them, convinced them to invest their savings in his exclusive investment program. By the time I noticed the pattern, he'd already stolen from dozens of victims. Margaret picked up one of the victim statements, her eyes widening as she read the details of Marcus's manipulation tactics. The FBI asked for my help. I continued. I agreed to wear a wire, to let Marcus think I was another potential victim. For 6 months, I gathered evidence while watching him destroy more lives. When they finally arrested him, he looked me in the eye and swore he'd make me pay someday. But why didn't you tell us? Amanda asked, her earlier hostility replaced by something that almost looked like respect. Because I wanted a chance at a normal life, I replied. When I met James, it was 2 years after the trial. He was kind, genuine, everything Marcus had pretended to be. I fell in love with him because he saw me for who I was, not what I could offer him. Margaret sat down heavily on an old chair. All this time we thought. You thought I was a gold digger, I finished for her. Because it was easier to believe I had ulterior motives than to accept that maybe, just maybe, your son could love someone from a different background. Sophia? A voice called from downstairs. James's voice. My heart stopped. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. Heavy footsteps on the attic stairs, and then he was there, taking in the scene before him. His wife, mother, and sister surrounded by evidence of a past I'd kept hidden. I caught an earlier flight, he said, his eyes fixed on the newspaper article in his mother's hands. Amanda called me, told me there was something I needed to know about you. I stood up, my legs shaking slightly. I should have told you long ago, James. I'm sorry. He walked over, picking up the FBI commendation letter. His eyes scanned it quickly, then moved to the victim statements, the court documents, the photos. No one spoke as he pieced together the story of who I had been before I became his wife. Finally, he looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I hadn't expected. Pride. You helped put him away, he said softly. You risked your life to protect other women. Yes, I whispered. He turned to his mother and sister. All these years you've judged her, questioned her motives, made her feel like she wasn't good enough. And all this time she was more honorable than any of us. James, Margaret started, but he cut her off. No, Mom. You and Amanda owe Sophia an apology. Not just for today, but for every snide comment, every subtle dig, every moment you made her feel unwelcome in this family. I touched his arm gently. James, they didn't know. That's the point, he said firmly. They never tried to know you. They were so convinced they knew your type that they never bothered to learn who you really are. The attic fell silent again, but this time it felt different. The truth lay scattered around us in black and white, undeniable and transformative. Margaret stood up slowly, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. I think we owe you more than an apology, she said quietly. We owe you the chance to be truly part of this family. Amanda nodded, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Sophia, for everything. I looked at them. These women who had made me doubt myself for 5 years, and felt something shift inside me. The past I tried so hard to hide had finally come to light, and instead of destroying my marriage, it had somehow made it stronger. James pulled me close, kissing the top of my head. No more secrets, he murmured. No more secrets, I agreed, feeling truly secure in his love for the first time since our wedding day. As Margaret and Amanda left, promising to help deal with any fallout from Marcus's attempts at revenge, I realized that sometimes the very things we try to hide become our greatest strengths when brought into the light. 2 weeks after the revelation in the attic, life had shifted in ways I never expected. The Anderson family dynamics had transformed. Margaret now called regularly, not to criticize but to genuinely check on me. Amanda had become an unexpected ally, using her legal connections to help protect me from Marcus's continued attempts at revenge. But Marcus wasn't finished. One morning, I arrived at the hospital where I worked as a nurse to find him waiting in the parking lot. He looked older than I remembered, prison time evident in the hardness of his face. Hello, Sophia, he said, pushing off his expensive car, still playing the noble hero. I stood my ground, my hand already on my phone. You need to leave, Marcus, now. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I lost everything because of you. My family's reputation, my future, all of it gone because you couldn't mind your own business. You lost everything because you stole from innocent women. I corrected him. I just made sure you faced the consequences. He took a step closer, and now you've built this perfect little life for yourself. The devoted nurse, the loving wife, the respected member of society. It would be a shame if something happened to ruin all that. Step away from my wife. James's voice cut through the tension. He emerged from his car, walking purposefully toward us. Behind him, I saw Amanda's car pull up and 2 police officers I recognized from her law firm. Marcus's smug expression faltered. This is a private conversation. Nothing about this is private, Amanda said, joining us with the officers. We've documented every attempt you've made to harass Sophia. Every call, every message, every threat. One of the officers stepped forward. Mr. Reynolds, you're in violation of your parole by being here. You were explicitly forbidden from contacting Ms. Martinez or her family. I watched as they arrested him, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. James wrapped his arm around me, solid and supportive. How did you know? I asked him. One of your coworkers saw him lurking earlier and called me, he explained. I reached out to Amanda immediately. Later that evening, the entire Anderson family gathered at our house. Margaret had insisted on a family dinner. saying we needed to do things properly from now on. As we sat around the dining table, I looked at these people who had once been my harshest critics. Margaret was sharing stories from James's childhood, actually including me in the conversation. Amanda was discussing how we could use my experience to help other women avoid similar scams. "I've been thinking," Margaret said, setting down her wine glass. "The family's charitable foundation could use someone with your insight, Sophia. Would you consider joining the board?" I nearly choked on my drink. The Anderson Family Foundation was Margaret's pride and joy, her way of maintaining the family's social standing. She had never even hinted at including me before. "Are you sure?" I asked carefully. "Of course she's sure," Amanda interjected. "Your experience with Marcus, your nursing background, you understand better than any of us how to actually help people." James squeezed my hand under the table. "What do you think, love?" I looked around at their expectant faces and felt tears well up in my eyes. "I'd be honored," I said softly. Margaret reached across the table and took my other hand. "No, Sophia. We're the ones who are honored. You've shown us what true strength and integrity look like. We were so busy judging you that we couldn't see the amazing woman my son was lucky enough to marry." That night, after everyone had left, James and I sat on our back porch looking at the stars. The same stars I used to look at 15 years ago, wondering if I was brave enough to stand up to Marcus. "You know what's funny?" I said, leaning against James's shoulder. "I spent so long trying to prove I was good enough for your family. But in the end, it was my past, the very thing I was trying to hide, that finally made them see me." James kissed my forehead. "They see you now. That's what matters." "Better late than never," I teased. "Much better," he agreed. "Though I always saw you from that very first coffee you served me." I smiled, remembering that day. "You were the only customer who ever asked my name." "Best question I ever asked," he said softly. As we sat there in comfortable silence, I thought about how life has a way of bringing things full circle. The past I tried to escape had become the bridge to my future. Marcus's attempt at revenge had only served to strengthen my bonds with the family I married into. Sometimes the very things we think will break us become the foundation of our strength. I learned that at 19, standing up to Marcus. I learned it again at 32, finally letting my truth come to light. The next morning, I would start my new role with the family foundation. But for now, I was content to sit under the stars with my husband, finally free from the weight of secrets and the need to prove myself. After all, the best revenge isn't in getting even. It's in living well, surrounded by people who love you for exactly who you are.